Greetings, family. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're commemorating and honoring and celebrating the greatest family reunion on Turtle Island, Juneteenth, 2025. And today we're doing our commemoration and celebration by inviting you all to our community report back. This past African Liberation Weekend, May 23rd and 24th. Myself and several experts, healers, artists, activists from around the world, we connected with many of the new seminarians that are going to be leading the vision of what the Roman Catholic Church will be in the future and in the near present. We joined them to discuss reparatory justice and healing for global African people. And today we're inviting those experts to give a community report back to those of us that are interested in getting involved in the movement, in engaging local grassroots community activists and faith leaders that want to be a part of praying with their feet. Faith without works is dead. And so today on this Juneteenth, we invite you to join us in power and prayer to talk about tangible strategies for doing this work. And so we're going to begin by inviting the leader of Pon Gentis, Omnis Gentis, at the Pontifical Urbana University to lead us in an opening prayer. Emmanuel?
Okay, thank you. And so we pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Father, Lord, we thank you for the opportunity you have given unto us to be gathered here as a family to discuss questions of justice, questions of truth. We pray that your Holy Spirit of truth will lead us, even as we go about our deliberations and giving of our reports from the various parts of the world. We pray that your grace will enlighten our minds so as to make very constructive initiative, bring about constructive initiatives on how best to actualize the cause of truth and the cause of reparations in the world for Africans globally. We pray through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen, Ashe. We hold up our Mother, Father, God, knowing that Spirit is leading this work, that at no point in global African history were we not guided by Mother, Father, God, the Creator, the Most High. And we need that same guidance here now today in 2025. At this time, I would like to invite our dear sister from Kentucky to lead us in a word of song so that we raise the vibration on this Juneteenth. Our sister, Cassandra Danford, are you with us? CJ, we see your name. Perfect. We'll feature and spotlight your video now. Our sister, CJ, for short, she was with us on ground in Rome, and she ensured that the voice and the role of the artivist, of the leader, the spirit leader, using their voice in song, that they were present and represented. And for our community report back, we want to bring that same energy to this discussion. CJ?
Give me a clean heart so I might serve thee. Lord, fix my heart so that I may be used by thee, for I'm not worthy of all these blessings, but give me a clean heart, and I'll follow thee. Thank you.
Beautiful. We must always remember the importance of the artist class in having these discussions around our reparatory healing, which begins with transformation of self. Thank you again. At this time, I want to acknowledge that the work we're doing to engage institutions and those that will take the helm of leadership for the Roman Catholic Church, the work that we're doing around engaging them in dialogue is not new. We understand that in 2022, July 18th, the Global Circle for Healing and Reparations was engaged by the Bellagio Center in Italy under the leadership of Nicole Hannah-Jones and the 1619 Project to discuss what reparatory justice looked like with experts and leaders around the world. One of my mentors, Dr. Ron Daniels, etc. And it was one Cam Howard, while answering the call of this invitation put forward by Nicole Hannah-Jones, who said to that delegation, we cannot go into Italy and not address the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church, in dialogue around our reparatory justice. They must be included. And so I would be remiss if in our community report back, if we didn't begin the discussion by acknowledging our elders and elders that have in our recent time engaged in this dialogue. And so on July 18th of 2022, we as a Teaching Artists Institute, we put this date down in our history and acknowledge that we're all in alignment. We began this work in January of this year. And though we were not aware of their meeting on July 18th, 2022, it doesn't matter because we're doing God's work. And when you are working in alignment with the mission, with God's mission, with that kingdom, your footsteps are ordered. And so we were brought together and they joined us, the Global Circle for Healing and Reparations. They joined us in Rome. And so I want to begin our community report back by bringing Cam Howard front and center. Cam, are you with us? Are you there? We're going to center your video at this time.
I am here, Sister Kim.
Perfect. We're putting your video on Spotlight. Please give us your community report back and introduce to the community at large why we went to host the Vatican Symposium and give us an overview of your presentation on ground.
Well, thank you, Sister Kim. I don't know, my camera is it's kind of dark in this room. I'm in Jamaica at this time with one of the speakers that was at in Rome last month, Dr. Jose Linga Nafafe, who was a keynote speaker, is here in Jamaica giving a presentation on Mendoza's complaint or presentation that he delivered to the Vatican in 1682. A brother from the Angola, Congo region of Africa that was subdued by the Portuguese, all stemming from the Dum Diversas Papal Bull that was established by the church that inaugurated transatlantic slave trade some 200 years after that, or 100 plus years after that Papal Bull. Lorenzo da Silva Mendoza went to the Vatican with a complaint. He was a lawyer at the time, with a legal complaint about the illegality of enslavement. And the Papa is not here, so he would probably be sharing this information. But about the illegality of enslavement and that reparations was due, and he put forth a complaint to the Roman Catholic Church. They delivered a verdict in the form of 11 answers to 11 questions. Was it legal to go in and enslave people from an unjust war? And the Roman Catholic Church, the court held that it was not legal to subject them to the type of treatment they were subjected to in the Middle Passage and other places. It was not legal to hold them in bondage, and that redress and reparations was actually, they should be freed and they should be compensated and they should be sent back from Brazil and other places that they were at, in Portugal as well. And so that was a ruling in 1684. So when the ruling came down, and we highlighted this particular papal bull, as Kim stated, that we went to the Vatican in July 22, and we delivered a presentment. Mendoza in 1682 delivered a presentation, which was a legal claim. I'm sorry, it was a legal complaint. We delivered a presentment, which is a legal claim on the Catholic Church. We had no idea that that's what Mendoza did. We didn't find out about it until after, like Kim said, she didn't find out about our trip in 2022 until recently. We didn't find out about Mendoza's action until last year. But 370 years later, again, he presented a presentation and we delivered a presentment. And without any knowledge of what he had done, you know, the ancestors are moving at this particular time. And the fact that these documents share the root word present, which is a legal term, some 370 years apart, show that the ancestors are moving within us at this particular time. So we were happy to hear that Reparation United and the Global Circle was happy to hear that Sister Kim had made contact and was speaking to some of the same people that we spoke to initiate a new conversation with the Vatican on a particular issue around cultural arts. And she could talk more about that. Our presentation or presentment was much more broader. We had 7 demands that we brought forth, and certainly one, the cultural arts component is definitely something that can fall within that particular demand. So we were happy to hear of Kim's plan and was happy to assist and to attend. When the first day of the symposium was at the university, I can't recall the name of the university. It's one of the 9 pontifical universities in Rome, where, again, Professor Nafafe was a keynote speaker. There were a couple of other speakers, 3 other speakers. Professors spoke, one, I think Italian, and the other 2 were of African descent. And I was asked to give a short intervention, and my intervention focused on and speaking to these new pastors who will be going into the African continent to do missionary work, was to frame the global context in which they will be doing their work. And that global context, when it relates to people of African descent, was that I felt, and history will show, and activities that are taking place globally, that we're in the midst of two revolutions, two global African revolutions that are happening simultaneously. And revolutions are not always violent, or, and the masses are not always involved in revolutions as well. But the revolutions are actions that are designed to create a massive change in the situation, or to overturn in its entirety a current situation. So these two revolutions that I talked about was, before I stated what these two revolutions were, I stated that you have to either be in support or in alignment with these revolutions, or you will be the target of both. There is no middle ground in these revolutions that are taking place. But the first revolution is a revolution on the issue of reparations. These are two justice revolutions. And one is this issue of reparations. All throughout the Americas, North America, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, Europe, on the African continent, the Africans, AU has declared 2025 to be the year of reparations for Africans and people of African descent. In Asia, in Australia, we're hearing and witnessing this demand for justice that's taking place among African people everywhere. For the first time in the history of the United Nations, several UN bodies also have placed reparations for people of African descent front and center. During the first decade for people of African descent, reparations was taken out. It was justice, recognition, and development, when it was supposed to have been justice, recognition, and reparations. They put development in there. And I think this next decade, we'll see that reparations will be key. So we're undergoing this revolution around reparations. And if you're going to go into the African continent doing any type of missionary work, you got to be clear that this is what you're going to be confronted with, and you're either going to have to join it or you'll be the target. And there's, a possibility if you join, we can work out win-win situations. And then the second revolution I talked about was the economic sovereignty revolution that's taking place. African youth are seeing one of the greatest contradictions on the planet, and that is that the African continent is the richest continent, and yet we have the poorest people. It's the most wealthiest continent, yet we have the worst health. We have the least living conditions, the lessest living conditions. When you look at development, I'm going to cut this short, but anyway, that was the second development. It's best represented by the Alliance of Sahel States that is taking place right now in Mali, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso. But it's happening all around the world. Where African especially young people, young Africans, are not wrestling with this major contradiction of the creativity and the resources, both physical and human, are being exploited not to our own benefit, but to the benefit of colonizers and oppressors. So that is what I try to bring out in the first session. The second day, we had a second symposium where there are many more speakers, and many of them are here today. But what I wanted to share at that during that gathering was the actual presentment, how it came about, and Kim talked about that. We were coming to Italy, and it was reparations activists were invited. And again, I stated there's no way we could go to Italy and not address the foundation of which all of our reparations work kind of rests, and that is this declared war against Africa by the Roman Catholic Church, that the Portuguese and others went in and changed the global order at that particular time. And that global order is still one that has Africa under assault today. So we designed what we call a presentment. A presentment is a statement of offenses of the church or crimes of the church. It is a statement of the continued impact of the church of those crimes, and it's a statement of the redress that are desired or are demanded. And this process of crimes, injury, repair is what we got out of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, that where international crimes against humanity have been committed, and there's continued impact of those crimes, then reparations is obligatory. It's not a question of should there be repair. Repair is obligatory. And so we crafted the presentment utilizing the Durban model. And we listed 7 demands. We got a little pushback from one of the white priests who was there, professor, who was an anti-colonial scholar. So it was surprising that we got pushback from him. His statement was it would not be easy. And he also questioned the reality of our efforts to hold the Catholic Church accountable some 570 years later or so. He thought that we should probably focus on the present and not the past, but we're certainly focused on the present because it is the present conditions of injury in which we're focused on being repaired. And the present injury or the present impact is a result of the past crimes. So you can't leave out the past crimes, you can't leave out the present injury, and you certainly can't leave out the future because these injuries will be perpetual unless there's remedies targeted. So our efforts of redress doesn't have a time continuum or a time component. It's a continuum of past, present, and future. He left after his comments, so we didn't get an opportunity to address him, but it was good that he brought this out because, here's someone who's favorable to favorable to justice on the African continent, let me put it that way, but yet his statement on reparations was kind of off-centered to that belief in justice. And so we're happy that he presented it and it gave us an opportunity to kind of hear some of the pushback that we're going to get. And on the third day, we attended the African Liberation Day event that was held at another one of the universities there, which was well attended, that was put on by a student collective, African Collective Initiative, a student group there. And I'm gonna go, because I delivered this report to the Global Circle when I came back. So let me just go to my assessments. We went there attempting to reestablish contact with the Vatican and to see what type of assets we had on the ground. And so I think we have a lot that we can build on. And Sister Kim and teachers at Artist Institute has definitely went beyond what we were able to do when we went utilizing some of the assets that we had, but has certainly got a really good contingent of people on the ground in Rome who can assist in our efforts going forward. There's a climate among the Black church leadership of what I think is fear and not becoming seen. That was kind of evident in some of our conversations we had with the conversations I had with the 2 Black professors who were there. There was absolutely no knowledge of the professors of the reparations conference that was held in May of last year, which was also one of our reasons for being there, was to determine what was, if there was an outcome document or what was the outcome of that reparations conference that brought 104 of the top scholars of the Roman Catholic Church to a conference to deal with the issue of reparations. There was no talk anywhere of the Pope having African ancestry, nor did it seem to make much of a difference once it was shared. When I shared that with the professors, I got a blank look. So these are things that demonstrate that there's a lot of education that has to be done, because we believe that a lot of what we do going forward is going to have to come from the African and African American and Afro descendant components or members of the church leadership. So there's going to have to be a lot of education. We have to go in knowing exactly what we're dealing with. It was suggested that the presentment went over very well as we discussed it, and it was suggested that it needed to be published. The presentation of presentment needs to be shared widely, more widely. We're here in Jamaica doing the same thing. Actually, also in Jamaica, I met a couple of nights ago with the Archbishop of Jamaica, who again has this same not wanting to be seen in this issue. And I share with him also that either you're gonna align yourself, support it, some type of way you're gonna be the target. And he questioned, what did I mean by being the target? And I shared that it could be as something as little as voicing our knowledge of your opposition to justice, or it could be direct action to the church, or it could be something different. But certainly, Black global Africa is not allowing any complicit actor to go unnoticed and to not bring them into this conversation of justice in the form of reparations at this particular time. Our collective attendance gave several a new purpose of how one does their work, as it was shared in some conversations afterwards. It was determined that we must continue the dialogue. We'll share that we cannot ignore Africa's shortcoming in this, and there's no blame or blamelessness that we can't overlook and ignore. Came away with the feeling that the church think Africa is still sleeping. I think someone shared that. And again, our final assessment was that we have to involve the Black bishop organizations of Africa and the diaspora. We'll be setting up a meeting with the Symposium, Episcopal Conferences of Africa, as well as the Pan-African Episcopal Committee for Social Communications. And we're looking to have meetings with the 6 Black bishops in the US and other Black bishops throughout the Americas. Started again with the Archbishop of Jamaica. And so that's my report back. There's a lot of work to do. When we went to the Vatican in 2022, Bishop Ty, who we spoke to, and his assistant, cautioned us. I looked over it, but he cautioned us in saying that things move within the church in 15-year cycles. It's like, this is going to take 15 years, but we're certainly not going to utilize that time frame. But we are becoming more and more aware of the amount of education that's needed throughout the church and among the leadership. And the leadership to push this forward may not come from the African world. So within the church, certainly if we can get more students, more bishops, leadership in the church, the better. And we're going to have that to move it forward, but not sure if we cannot move faster. Let me rephrase it. I'm not sure if we have to wait until we get this Black buy-in and solidarity at the large level if we have to wait to get that in order to continue to move forward. So I look forward to hearing the other reports and what we can build on from some of the activity by the others who are there. Thank you, Sister Kim, and I hope I addressed what you needed me to address.
Absolutely, you have. And I think not only are we appreciative that you took your time to lend your voice and expertise while we were on ground in Rome, I think it's essential that we bring the community at large along with us for this work. This is not a inside job. This is an inside and an outside job. And so we need the average person, the average church goer, the average person in the mosque, in the Ephi temples. We need everybody. Global African people. Reparatory justice and healing is a world remaking exercise. It's rebalancing the world's resources. It is healing for all of us. And so we're going to need voices. And I love the fact that you're saying that we had outside partners from outside the leadership of Global Africa, that we had students, we had artists. This was truly an intercultural, interfaith, and intergenerational dialogue. And that is what it will take. And so at this time, I want to bring forth our artists, our artivists that captured these conversations using art out of Kenya. I want him to introduce himself, and he's going to go through what is the beginning of one of our first solutions and outcomes as the Teaching Artists Institute to the Vatican Symposium, which is using art and culture to capture this information and begin sharing it in large part to educators. And so you are too kind. Thank you, Baba. Cam Howard, you are a pillar, a walking, talking library in this work. And so we depend on you as a resource. Eric, are you with us in Kenya? I know it's very late in Kenya. Are you with us?
Hey, Kim, I'm here.
All right, perfect. I know that it will probably change your bandwidth or ability to communicate if you turn on video. And so if you don't mind, I would like us to go right into sharing the images that you've created so far for our, as a teaching tool. And so I'm gonna go ahead and share my hosting with you. Give us 1 second. We're going to make you the host so that you can share your screen. All right, Eric, you are the host. You can now share your screen and quickly talk with us through each one of the slides so that they can see what you digested. And before you go into the first slide, please tell those of us at home in the community a little about your background and who you are and the work that you do.
Okay, thank you so much, Kim, for that introduction. Greetings, everyone. My name is Eric Mwaniki Kiari. Don't worry if you're not able to pronounce that name. It's totally okay. Perhaps in another time frame, I can teach you how to pronounce my African name. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I am what you call a graphic recorder. And what I do is essentially I sit in workshops, I sit in meetings, and I listen in for the key points, key themes, key outcomes, and then process all that information and translate all that information into a visual format. This way, it's engaging, it's precise, it's colorful, it's African, and it helps in memory retention, it helps in sparking conversations, it helps in engagement, and it helps also in ways of expression. I happened to meet Kim in another workshop in Ghana. That's where we connected. And And by the way, all of these things happen in real time as conversations are happening. Rome was quite interesting, and not being a native Italian speaker, it was a bit of a challenge to try and bring out the key messages and the key themes that really came out during the conversations. But because of technology and because of things where we use tools such as AI, we were able to translate all that language into a format that is, into English, which is more or less a universal language. So I'm going to start with the very first. So what happens before I even start sharing is that we try to capture these stories, capture the conversations in a way that's very, like I said, engaging, and we use various forms of storytelling. We use a lot of visual metaphors and visual elements just to drive the message home, and also bring out or stir up certain emotions, spark conversations as well. So yeah, if you see a lot of those images, these are more or less based on what I felt was relevant to the conversations that were happening. So I'm going to share the very first one. And this was, if you're able to see my screen, or rather be able to see the
So
image.
we can see your screen, but we need you to pin yourself now that you're the host. So
Okay.
make yourself the main screen.
How do I do that? Okay.
If you enlarge that screen, you can see everything. I think is possible to see whatever is written there. I think. Sorry for interrupting.
All right. Give me once. Are you guys able to see?
Yes, we can see your
Yeah, we can see.
diagram.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. So yeah, this was the very first session that was that Dr. Jose Nafafe took us through, and it was based off some of the research that he had done, and some of the things that really came out that he discovered during his research period. As you can see, it follows kind of a story arc, and think of it like a comic book, more or less. But we do have elements that show some of the things that were that he spoke about. Again, most of these things are not online, except maybe perhaps the picture of the Queen. The rest of this is just creativity and a lot of visual imagery, just so that you can have a glimpse of, or rather you can have an idea. Like I said, we have a lot of images that invoke, maybe can invoke emotion, can even spark conversations. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. I'm just going to take you through just a feel and a sight of exactly what the strength or the purpose of the graphic recording or the illustration of it. So that was the very first piece that was I was able to capture. The other was this is still a continuation of the very first one. As you can see, we have this is the imagery that I was talking about, the visual metaphors that we were talking about, I was talking about earlier. So for example, I'll take you to the center of the illustration there, whereby we have the statement that instead the colonial powers received compensation for their lost property after the abolition of the slave trade. And in this case, this is talking about how rather the enslaved Africans did not get the the compensation that they were meant to have. And in this case, we have a tipping scale showing that the compensation that was meant to be given to the African was instead given back to their colonial masters. And again, after that, just next to that, we have, Christianity was given to us, and yet we were still enslaved. Even though we were also free, we were still given nothing. And one of the things that really came out as well was that this statement called inculturation. It says that inculturation must be holistic and radical, not selective. So if you don't know what inculturation is, I had to look it up, and it just shows a blend of two things. So you can see we have the African, what represents the African nature is the use of drums. That was the easiest way that I felt would necessitate the symbolism or the representation of that. And of course, for Christianity, we do have the cross, and also again in this case, just to drive the message a bit more home, we do have the rosary itself. I'm just going to take you through the next illustration that followed. And in this, we get a bit more detailed, we get a bit more into the story, into the conversations that were happening. We do have the statement that Christianity, of course, we know Christianity is the most widespread religion in the world, but it came really at a cost, and particularly through colonization. Baptism was seen as a spiritual good, but baptism did not free the enslaved Africans, nor did it restore their dignity. So when you, like I said, some of the visual elements that we use are, we can see that the African there is being baptized. However, they are not yet free. As you can see, they are also shackled by the neck, as our ancestors were, and also by the hands. So they're being given this baptism as a show of good faith, as a show of spiritual freedom, and yet their physical freedom is not granted to them. Again, the church authorities remain silent about the cruelty of slavery. So we do have a pastor or a priest, but however, we keep it faceless because it's also trying to symbolize the man or the masculine nature of the church back then, and then their mouth is covered just for the silence. And again, we do try to pick out some of the visual elements that are already existing from history. Like, for example, this is a picture from that actually is existing from Pope Paul the Third, and then we have Pope Gregory. Is this the 16th, I believe? Yes. So again, a lot of visual elements, a lot of visual metaphors, and then a lot of symbolism as well. We have about 3 more. I'm just gonna cycle through quite them quickly. Just give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. So now we're getting into, again, we started off by kind of seeing where everything started, and then we are transitioning all the way through to finding solutions and finding the real outcomes, or finding the way forward on how we are supposed to address some of these issues. And then there was a lot of talk about faith. Faith is merely not a cultural product, but an integrated way of life. The expression of faith cannot be detached from the cultural context. There's a call to reclaim and affirm African cultural identity within the practice of Christianity. The mission of the church must address ecological, political, and economic challenges that affect Africans. Culture is complex and multidimensional system. There's a call for a more respectful and transformative model of evangelization. The relationship between faith and culture is not static, it's dynamic. The process is a dynamic process of interaction, adaptation, and transformation. And the gospel brings renewal, but it must be interpreted and lived through the cultural lenses of the African people. The church in Africa is called to embed gospel into African ways of living. So we do have, in this case, we do have the representation of a chain, but not as a chain for bondage, but rather a chain for linkage. We have the way of life symbolized as a link, as links, and we have them different colors. And the church comes in the middle just so as to combine the two, the African and the Christian ways of doing things. And then the church should be a place of unity in diversity. So that's why you see the unity as well as diversity in terms of symbolized by the two puzzle pieces. So we just, oops. So right now we are almost getting to I believe this was a conversation that the session rather that that was as we headed down to wind up and getting now to the real solutions. It was talking about the pillars of revolutions, and I think this was a session about how Howard took us through this session about the global revolution for justice, which is driven by the African continent and its diaspora. We do have the pillars of revolutions, reparations, and resistance of ongoing exploitation, resistance to ongoing exploitation. There was conversation about how the Catholic Church and other Christian institutions accused of maintaining a culture of amnesia, and we must cure this amnesia. Christianity must respond also to political and moral standings with Africans. No missionary effort in Africa can be legitimate if it ignores the historical wounds and the current movements of justice. So you can see in this part of the Africa with the hands and the broken chains. The broken chains also symbolize that we have not forgotten about our historical wounds, about what was done to us back then. So now as we wind up, we get now to the solutions about how the way forward and our demands. So we do acknowledge that the church played a central role in the spiritual and moral justification of slavery, colonization, and the racial hierarchy. The legacy of the crimes continue to affect Africa's development, global Black racism, spiritual and psychological dignity. And as for our reparations are required by, or rather under international law. They are a moral imperative. They are also structured into 5: the cessation, restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and a guarantee of non-repetition. However, these are the concrete demands that we want to give to the church, or that really came out during the conversation that were happening, was there needed to be full acknowledgement. There needed to be a formal apology. There needed to be advocacy to other nations to rescind some of the papal bulls that really came out during the conversations and during the research that was done. There was a need to publish a global encyclical and then form a papal Reparations Commission. And again, I think this was really something that was important, was offer financial support to the cause. Again, these were some of the conversations. These are just highlights of the conversations that were happening in Rome during our stay there. So yeah, I think I can end it at that, and maybe answer any questions that might have risen out or emerged. So, but until then, thank you so much for that.
Eric, that was incredible. You can make me the host again. I think we all appreciate the fact that you're able to use your art to capture this conversation, and you are a testament of the power of the artist class and our ability to tell stories. And so a part of today's community report back is a call to artivists and artists that are interested in helping us to just capture the history, to capture the story, because we need an army of spiritual leaders and prayer leaders and artists and artivists that want to be a part of this work, that want to help us with doing that engagement. Because as you mentioned, Eric, many of these images are from your mind. The depiction of this story is not available. It's maybe, you know, we thank Dr. Nafafe for his book. I know he's working on book number 2, but the truth is we need to find creative ways of capturing just the truth, because we as a community haven't done that. And it's time that we lend our skills to this work. We also have many allies. Up next for our community report back, I want to bring into my WILF sister, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, who helped to co-host the second day of our event, where with intention as an organization, we stepped out of the walls of the Vatican at the Pontifical Urbaniana University, and with intention, we went into the community, because there is a global African community in Italy itself, outside of the Vatican City, which is an actual city with its own legal covering. Sometimes we think of the Roman Catholic Church as a religious entity, but they have a legal framework of their own. They have their own system of protection. They have their own banking system. So it's a city within a city, and it's global. And so we wanted to make sure that we talk to legal entities, community-based institutions, and the arts and culture workers that are outside of the Vatican City. And it was because of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom that we were able to organize that and connect to so many other leaders in this work. And so I want to now introduce our leader of the Women's International League in Italy, Patrizia, and feature your video so that you can do our community report back.
Okay, thank you, Kim. After a very intense first day of discussion between historians, theologians, and students at the Urbaniana, we'll move with the merit of the second day. I immediately agreed to collaborate with Kim Poole of Thai because it was in the spirit of our organization, WILF, and because there is a branch of our permanent activity that concerns the African migrants and refugees. The state of necessity that pushed toward migration is connected with the discards of the damage done to the African continent during the centuries. I also listened to the appeal launched by a member of WILF US, Teresa Elaimin, on the importance of the decade dedicated to the Afro-descendants by the UN from January 2015 to December 2024. The decade has ended, but we are during the Jubilee. Already in July 2023, on the occasion of the webinar organized in Brussels, indeed in the network of Global Women Unite for Peace Against NATO, I hear the voices of authoritative African representatives, such as a South African lawyer, mentioning the need of reparation. The day of May 24 significantly hosted in the hall of the Valdesian church in Via Marianna Dionigi. It was a complex organization, shared with Kim Poole and Marvels Emanuel of the Urbaniana University. It was complex to find the speaker illustrating the theme with they had addressed, because the discussion on reparation is not very widespread in Italy. Instead, we are many voices or witnesses of the suffering caused by colonialism and discrimination. After the song of Cassandra Danforth, Brogdon Lewis, we came from Kentucky, spoke. The Giovanna Graziano, president of Comunità Italo-Somala, was invited to speak, who illustrated the consequences of the racial law on the children of Somali mother and Italian father during the fascism. I would like to emphasize that I met Giovanna during the commemoration in September 2023 of Giorgio Marincola, the only Italian Somali partisan who died to fight against Nazi fascism. Then spoke Vincenzo Mazzola, an Italian Eritrean, who dedicated his book to his mother, Mama de Menesh, recounting the resilience of an Eritrean woman abandoned by her Italian husband and left with 8 children. Then spoke Daoud Mahamat, a Sudanese historian and representative of Refugee Welcome, a network that denounced the abuse of migrants who cross Libya to reach Europe. Anna Peter Mbrio, a representative of Tanzanian diaspora, who had been at the European Parliament the previous week to denounce the oppression in Tanzania. Then spoke Cam Howard of Reparation United from Chicago, a great promoter of the cause of reparation, Kwanza dos Santos, an Afro-Italian Brazilian who illustrated the situation in Brazil and Italy, recalling the imminent referendum of citizenship, which unfortunately didn't reach the quorum. Then we listened the opinion of the historian of African history, Alessandro Triulzi, who questioned the initiative of the request for reparation due to the dark time we are going through. This was followed by the testimony of Kiononso Stanislaus Obiekor, a Nigerian graduate in theology in the Urban University, who spoke about the phenomenon still present in Catholic circles of harassment, sexual blackmail, and penalized role of women in church. Author of the text, She Entity. A small debate followed in which Cam Howard intervened in response to Alessandro Triulzi, Stanislao Chinonso, Anna Peterbrio, and Steven Emejuru, a Nigerian graduate for the Pontifical University Angelicum and the doctorate from the Lateran University, cultural mediator and coordinator of the Movement of Africans. He reconstructed the phenomenon of discrimination against Africans, and Kim Poole intervened at the last moment, emphasized the polyphonic strength of this voice from different African countries to be valorized for the project of justice and healing. The third day, the afternoon of Sunday, 25 May, at the Studentato of San Paolo of the Pontifical University, which hosts 80 African students, was also culturally suggestive and rich in exchange. In particular, we live of the life of young people and their need for unity as an antidote to depression and the difficulty of the immigration emerged. In general, I perceived a very fraternal and sisterly atmosphere among the members of the delegation of African intelligentsia, and I believe that is due to Kim Poole, who is a fantastic organizer, an animator full of concern and attention for everyone. I perceived the great value of the people who come. Unfortunately, the time was short to get to know each other better, but there are a condition to continue collaborating. My impression is that we need to increase the network, patiently, disseminate the objective of this campaign for reparation, and continue to be an example of peaceful and non-violent process for justice, in contrast with the tension of the current world. This is my message.
Thank you. What an incredible recap. I feel that you were very concise, and I appreciate your preparation. I now want to give those at home in my community that have never been to Italy or the Vatican a taste of the diversity of African people that are on ground in Italy. And so I just want to give a few minutes to two of our speakers that were there on day 2 of the symposium to talk about their recap. I want to start with our speaker, Anna, our Dada from Tanzania, and then I want to end with our Nigerian brother from Niger, Izika, who is also a student who matriculated and graduated in the seminary at the Pontifical Urbaniana University. Anna, are you with us?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
All right.
How are you guys?
We're so glad that you're with us. I'm going to spotlight your video and...
Okay, let me put on the video. Okay, can you see me?
We
Can you
can
see me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, today myself would like to pose some questions instead of talking about that meeting. I don't want maybe repetition of everything, because as I can understand, Patricia has already tried to summarize whatever we have been doing that day. So myself, I want to pose some question which was lingering on my brain. I want to ask you guys, after all these meetings you're doing and summits, symposium, and whatever, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve, especially for Africans? This is one question. Another question is, as we can see, African leaders, many of them are dictators. How are we going to address this? Because they imitate colonialists, they are also like a black colonialist. What are we going to repair? What are we going to repair then if African leaders themselves are the problem, actual big problem? Suppose if we ask European, American, whoever is there to maybe to repair whatever damage has been done because of this slavery, colonialism, but how are they going to repair? While those leaders are not there for their people. So I don't know how to put my question, and I don't know how to link these two things. We repair what and who is going to collaborate in this reparation?
Thank you, sis. Dada, we certainly appreciate your questions, and we're going to hold those. I'm going to put a pin in it until we get to our answer and question section, but even just seeing your face and showing us inside of the global African Italy, seeing the multicultural nature, you're showing us what the boots on the ground outside the Vatican look like. And these are the kind of questions we need. I'm going to go next to our prayer warrior.
Thank you.
In peace. No, asante sana dada. Yes, tuka pamoja and nakupenda. And so we have peace.
Nakupenda pia and nawapenda wote. I love all of you guys. Kim
Yeah.
speaking,
Thank
April
you.
speaking, Eric. I love you much. Bye-bye.
Yes. Are you with us, our peace warrior in prayer? Pastor Ezeka? Obi Okor? Obi Akor? Stanislay? I'm so sorry. I'm butchering your name. There we are. I'm going to now censor your video so that you can give us our community report back. Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. And so we're going to spotlight your video as we speak, and you can begin. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Patricia who got me into this. I need to say thank you so much, and then I need to thank everybody that make up their time to hear the report of what happened the last time. Patricia has said everything, so I don't think I have anything to add. But I just want to say that it was an experience for me, and I was very happy. First time in my life trying to say some certain things that I could always say in the closed doors. No, so I was able to say it. So not much, and then I was very happy seeing your especially your energy. Thank you very much. I can omit that. Your energy and your zeal towards this reparation of a thing and then the whole thing. And I would want to say thank you very much. We need more of your kind. And also to also say that I was very happy on the last meeting at the school where the African students showed their talents and everything, and then some music were played. So that was my first time in Italy going in an African gathering. Patricia will be a witness that I go to work, I go home. I go to school, I go home. So that was the first time, and I was very happy. It was a very beautiful exposure for me. So, and it added something to my experience. So I was it was the healing on my own side. So that's it. And I hope the whole thing keeps going on. I hope we keep burning the fire. We keep blowing the fire so that we get what we're looking for.
Absolutely,
Thank you
we
very
will.
much.
We will keep blowing the fire, and you are
Yeah.
part of that flame. And so now that we have, in a lot of ways, given you a skeleton of what the community report back is, what we did on ground from different perspectives, both those that came into the country and those that were on ground that met us there. Now we want to talk about what the global African community can do with us. The global African community alongside of our allies, because this work only matters if you show up. This was just one seed. Now it is time for us on this Juneteenth commemoration to come together in purpose and power and talk about how we can together pollinate this seed, so that we know that it wasn't just another talk shop, a meeting about the meeting. Sometimes when we speak truth to power, those institutions love for the conversation to continue because it is at the expense of action. And the only action that's happening is the dialogue itself. But we're very clear in the Teaching Artists Institute as artivists that our work around reparatory justice and healing is about engaging the masses in this dialogue and spurring them into action. And so we have several religious leaders here on our call today. And to get that community dialogue started, I want to invite them each to talk and reflect about what they've heard here today and what they would like to do on behalf of their religious institution to be a part of and support this work. We have Reverend Kobe Little, we have Dr. Akil Kalafani, and what is this? I look into the audience and I see my own spiritual leadership. Y'all, I've been attending a church here locally in my hometown of Baltimore for just over a year now, and I see that they are also here with us. And so I cannot wait to hear what their reflection is. And then, of course, we have many community leaders that are here that I'm sure have burning questions about how they can get involved with their local faith-based initiatives as artivists and activists and healers for reparatory healing and justice. I see a prophetess among us and so many others. And so I would like to start with our Baba, Reverend Kobe Little. Baba, are you with us?
I'm here. I can't be on video this afternoon, but I'm certainly here as a part of this conversation and have been really delighted to hear from all of the previous speakers. So blessings to each and every one who was here. Blessings of love, peace, and power to you. Sister Kim, we want to thank you for your leadership. I marvel every time I have the opportunity for encounter with you. Marvel at the energy and the perception, the clarity, and the love that God has given you to give to our people and to put towards this work. So I'm grateful for that, and I give thanks for that. I also give thanks for all who have responded to this call, all who have, even in the face of the strength of the Catholic Church, called for this conversation and engaged this conversation. So I regret that I was not able to join you all at the Vatican last month, but it was a great work that you've done there and that you continue to do. And so my commitment is to join in the chorus and to walk and work with each of you as we move from conversation to action.
Thank you. We've got that on the record, Reverend. We just want you to know that we've heard you and it's recorded. God sees you.
Put it on the record. Put it on the record.
Yes. I want to call up next Dr. Akil Kalafani. Again, we're looking to be action-oriented. Before we open this dialogue to the public in general and get questions and comments about the work and the community report backs, first we want to be action-oriented. On this Juneteenth commemoration day in power and purpose, we want to talk about what we're going to do, what you want to do as a spiritual leader, as an artivist, as an activist, a community worker, builder. What is it that you are able to do and contribute to the work that we've presented here today? Dr. Akil Kalafani.
Peace and blessings, family. How you doing, my sister? Appreciate all the work that Ty is doing and that everyone else is doing. I'm a professor of sociology and African studies, and I'm the ambassador to the Oni of Ile-Ife. And you know, I've had an opportunity to travel to the Vatican, not during the time you all were there, but I was there last year and went on a African studies tour of a lot of the places, and just using that as a basis to start thinking about how do we tell our story. And I think one of the things of action is that we have to travel, participate, and bring into the fold folks who have the ability to tell our stories in ways that are different than they've been presented by others who try to tell that story. We have to we have to grab a hold of the narrative and be the ones who articulate that. So I am going to be in Togo in December as part of the 9th Pan-African Congress. And so then this is another opportunity for us to build on what's going on in the Sahel, to build on the legacy of African engagement in transforming spaces and taking those things that started but maybe didn't get to the place that we want them to ultimately be, to continue to push the envelope. And I think that, you know, we look at the OAU, we look at the African Union, that those are outgrowths of Henry Sylvester Williams' first Pan-African Conference, which was held in 1900 in London. However, you have this Trinidadian who was inspired by so many other thinkers before him, and then you had others who carried on that legacy. And now it's our turn to build on the work of Thomas Sankara and Nkrumah and Du Bois and Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and Fannie Lou Hamer. So now we have to bring that energy to the next level. Sometimes we see that people would say that, well, nothing has changed, but I think that even though we still have some things that we're confronted with, that building on those spaces, that is building on the works and efforts of Ty, building on the works and efforts of Dr. Jeffries, who got these African studies programs moving in the United States, that all of that, whether it's small or large, we have to see these as steps in the right direction. And we now have to carry forward that in new ways and finding ways to touch those youth. I think Ty is doing some of this, but we have to also find those ways to do that on a grander scale in our local communities, right? That we take that initiative to pull those and motivate young folks to find that energy within them, and then use that as a springboard for transforming the spaces that we're in. A lot of times we don't see the passion or the drive from young folks. And you know, I was having a conversation with someone who I work with on a financial literacy program in New Jersey, and she was saying, how do we motivate young folks the way we think that we were motivated? Some of us were motivated in the 60s, or people who migrate here. And I said, well, we can't compare all those, but we do have to find ways, places, and spaces to motivate young folks to be the next leaders. And part of that is that we have to give up some of our authority as trying to be leaders. So those of us who are runners of institutes and leaders of religious institutions, academic scholars, we need to pull in young folks to be the next ones who are going to take over. We have to start thinking now about succession planning. What does it mean to have someone else come in and sit in the seat that we've been leading for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and bring someone in without us having to die in our seat, to retire in our seat and bring that legacy, coach them along and let them do their thing to continue what we've done. And we need to be comfortable with them being the ones who are the new leaders, and finding ways to help coach them into their successes and be the champions of a group of young folks. Maybe it's a need for a group of scholars. We do have one group I'm a member of, is the National Black Council of Elders. Maybe we need a National Black Council of Scholars and African leaders to come and only focus on succession planning, succession training, And that might be a good task for us to think about Sister Kim's question. How we move forward? Maybe that's something we need to focus on, spending some time on creating space for development of succession training and planning for young folks. And then for us as elders, maybe the question or the point is that we need to think about, we have rites of passage for youth, but maybe we need rites of passage for elders. What does it mean to be an elder and not just an older? Those are some things I would leave us with. And I think there's much more work to do. And I always have been committed to doing those things. And thank Ty again for its leadership, and our sister Kim, and our brother Haki, and everyone else. Peace and blessings. And thanks for this today on Juneteenth, developing this program.
Thank you. It's important for us that we begin to have strategies for implementation, and I appreciate you being a practitioner, not just as a doctor, a theologian, talking about what we should do and how we should do it in the pedagogy, but actually taking your theories from your practice. We appreciate that in you so much. And in the vein of us hearing from the spiritual community, I want to next call to the mic. Are they with us still? Pastor Tom, are you there? First Lady Rosalind, are you there? Let me make sure. Are you still there with us? Yes, I think I heard something. Okay, so hopefully you will unmute and come back in. I think I did hear something. Maybe that was you. But I want to move that to Emmanuel. A lot of people, you understand that the reason that we were able to host our conversation in the walls of the Vatican with their seminarians is because the seminarians themselves decided that this conversation was necessary. And so we would be remiss if we didn't ask him in real time, on behalf of his generation, of the next leadership, the next, what we'll call them, the next phase of the Roman Catholic Church's history. Ask him what his plans are. What does he see as next steps? Emmanuel, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. I want to believe it may be a bit dark here, but I believe that I'm heard.
You said you believe that you're hurt?
Okay, all right, it means you can hear me.
Yes, you're heard. Yes, you're heard.
All right. Okay, for me, it was a very great experience to have been able to organize and make it possible for the meeting here in the Pontifical University of Urbaniana to discuss on the questions of this dialogue, the dialogue that has to do with questions of reparations and healing. And basically, as regards the discussion at the Urbaniana University, being a missionary university, our main focus was on the burning questions of mission for Africans, as executed in Africa. Some of the lapses that were discovered in the course of history, and how best the church can overcome this today to make the gospel that she preaches credible. This is not something new within the Catholic Church. The church is so much interested in addressing some of the imbalances that in the course of history mission, the mission especially for Africans, but not just for Africans, but for the entire world that was not Western, was subjected to
Let me see. Well, I can't use the.
Sorry.
Please continue.
Okay. So the whole idea was to bring to life what the church herself is very much interested in now, because the question of healing, reparations, and all that is may not be so much new to the church, because what I study, for instance, I study interfaith and interreligious dialogue and intercultural dialogue. That's what I study in the university, the Pontifical University. And so in the course of our studies, we address some of these things. The church is very much interested. And I felt that it is also important that we do not just remain at the level of theory, but we try to go into practical dialogue on some of these issues. And so when I met with Kim, I thought it as something very much interesting that that would be a step forward towards realizing also the justice that we're seeking for Africans also in the cause of mission, some of the imbalances that we had in the cause of mission. And so it was a very enriching moment in which a lot of persons presented, professors and also scholars presented on the theme, as many others have just stated who were there. And so for me, it is something that has to be continued, because as far as I know, because I'm part of the church, and I know that the church preaches justice, the church preaches love, and is interested in promoting anything that we promote human dignity. We maybe as a way of putting right what was wrong, what has gone wrong, and all that. But very much the church is interested in this. And so it is something that for me, I will encourage that it is a movement that should continue. The dialogue with the church should be an ongoing thing, because the change or the results may not come at once, but in the course of it, the church, because the church herself is open, being a question of truth and being a question of justice, the church herself is open to this, but it has to come through dialogue. And so that is the only word I may leave for us in this movement, to continue in the course of dialogue. For me, as I am speaking, I'm not speaking on behalf of the church, because I don't have those powers, as it is evident, but I am just speaking of what I'm convinced of, the direction towards which the Catholic Church is going today. And so it is just to encourage that this should continue. And I very much enjoyed all the moments, even the second day that was held in that was organized, the courtesy to Patricia, and the Sunday in which the cultural, the Liberation Day, African Liberation Day was held at the Collegio San Paulo. And all of these were very much embraced. And other aspects that I would say was that that has not been mentioned here is the fact that after all of this, a few of us had the opportunity to grant interview with the Vatican News. And there, Dr. Nafafe and Patricia and myself were able to also share with the Vatican in terms of the Vatican radio, all the experiences that we had and the motives for which all of this was organized. And so I thank the organizers, I thank him and everybody who contributed to the success of those events. And I'm looking forward to a mature collaboration among us so as to carry on this fire of justice, this fire of truth that the church that I know is also today interested in. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Emmanuel. It's important that everyone here know that on June 27th, you will be ordained as a priest, and you'll be headed back to Nigeria with this message, and you won't return to the Vatican until you get your doctoral degree, but you will indeed get your doctoral degree, but that we have one more ally inside of the institution that understands the need for this dialogue and wants to be a part of the conversation, what we call praying with our feet. I think that Pastor Tom is up now, and so we're going to open for our community interventions. We want to know that the community is here with us, that you are out in large numbers, and that you are ready to be a part of this work. And so I want to make sure we spotlight your video. Let's see, so that everyone can see. And please let us know, Pastor Tom, what you think of our community report back and what you would like to do as a faith leader. Maybe tell us a bit about your journey as a faith leader and if you think it's necessary for you to be a part of this work.
Well, thank you, Kim, and grace and peace to everyone. Glad somehow I able to get in here. Those who know me know that I'm technologically impaired, and I still use an Android, so it's a minor miracle for me to be able to get on here. Kim, as you know, my wife Rosalind, and I wish she were here right now. She's far more articulate than I as a community organizer historically. But we are, I don't know if you can hear this, I'm in my automobile and we are in a tremendous storm, torrential storm here in Baltimore. We went from home listening to the car. She's in a medical building now and hopefully getting some help for her pain from a hip replacement, which Kim knows is why we were not able to go to the Vatican. But anyway, that aside, I'm just absolutely inspired by this today. I knew this was global, Kim, but it's more amazingly global than I had anticipated. And so I've been just soaking this in and have some thoughts. And let me say I'm honored to have been introduced as a spiritual co-laborer with you. You mentioned some of my past. I think my history, I think is probably a rationale for your asking that. I've been 47, a little bit more than 47 years, ordained ministry. 99% of that time has been in the inner city of Baltimore. But my first 16 years of that ordination was as a Roman Catholic priest for the Archdiocese of Baltimore. And obviously, mentioning my wife Rosalind is obvious clue that I'm not as a Catholic priest, but I'm still serving in the ordained ministry. And of course, no offense to my brothers there in the Pontifical Seminary. I can say with assurance that my part of the journey was not a renegade or anything rebellious to the institution. In fact, I'm rejoicing even hearing this because African-American Catholic Bishop John Ricard, was the one that kind of co-labored with me in my release to just go into another field of mission. So I have, born and raised in a Sicilian Catholic family. And so I'm well acquainted with Catholicism, well acquainted with Dom de Visus, Doctrine of Discovery, and some of the history. And it's just been a miracle, Kim, that somehow we got linked up to you and can continue to be a part in whatever way we're led, whatever way you need us in this continual mission. I did have one quick thought. I don't want to belabor too long here, because I know more people to speak, but one thought I was hearing as our brother was mentioning about the bishop in Jamaica and trying to reach some of the African Catholic bishops, a thought occurred to me that I know in my years of Catholicism, there was always a major gathering called the African American Catholic Congress that nationally met in New Orleans every year. And I believe that still goes on. In fact, I believe it's coming up in the near future. And just hearing this today, I thought I want to make some connections, Kim, by way of that Congress, because I think that somehow I'm believing for a door to open to you or some representatives from here to be able to get there and to be able to speak there, because that is going to be a national witness to the Catholic Church, particularly the African American Catholic Church. And I think we can make something happen that way. But I'm just blessed, humbled to be a part of this great movement, and everyone I've heard speak has just been an amazing blessing to me at this point in my I would say my autumn years in this leg of the journey. I'm excited about this, and you know, my hat's in the ring. I'm speaking for Roz, my wife. I know she is committed as well, and we are very appreciative of Kim and what God is doing with you, what God is doing through you, and for having somehow to have been, I believe, supernaturally connected with you. God bless. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I want to add this. As I mentioned, I'm not sure if I'm still on mute. I'm off mute. I'm here in my car in the storm, and I'm here with she just moved, but right here, this is kind of important today. This is Cinnamon, and she came to us on Juneteenth, 2023, shortly after her birth. And so we're celebrating her Juneteenth arrival today with us as well. Okay.
All right, Pastor Tom. Thank you so much for letting us see Cinnamon, and also for telling us a little about your history, being a part of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and then no longer being a part of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, but continuing your ministry. And it sounds like you're going to be in support of this mission. And so now we want to open up for community weigh-ins, community questions, and community interventions. So there's no order, rhyme, or reason to this. We're going to give it to you guys. I see a hand raised. That seems like a really good format. And so I see the first hand raised coming from ordained minister and prophetess. And so I want to ask you to unmute and to start your video, and so that you can ask us. And I'm going to only ask that we keep our interventions to 1 minute or less, so that we have time to actually dialogue around what you say. Prophetess? I guess you're looking for the unmute button.
I have it unmuted, and I have to apologize. I think I mentioned to you I'd be in a class on the road or something, so if you allow me some leeway today. But real quick, I'll summarize this. I actually grew up Catholic, and to the 12th grade, went to Catholic nursing school, went to Catholic college, worked for a nun. So I'm real Catholic. Well, I'm not real Catholic. I'm not Catholic now. Also, but there's a Jesuit, someone who was Jesuit said, "Give me your son," I think it was, "and I will show you the man," because I wanted to be a nun growing up, and just a few years ago, I went looking for a convent. I'm saying that to say, as we do this work, and I guess I won't ramble on about that piece of it, but I'm listening to the conversation. I congratulate you, and I'm very proud of you that your work that you're doing. My only caution, I kind of lean on the side of the young woman from Nigeria, and I'm hoping that you all will allow, if you call us the devil advocate or whatever, because there's a certain level of nicety that for me doesn't go along with 500 years of oppression and abuse and, you know, sex trade and all that kind of stuff. So, but we do need those who know how to come to the table with a conciliatory voice or whatever. But however, So here's my thing. I have a list of things that I will be praying for. I have a list of things that I will be advocating for and putting out there. One is that there's an actual firm retraction of the Dum Diversas. My understanding growing up as a Catholic is that the Pope is the vicar of Christ and that his word is like God in the earth. And I believe in spiritual energy and all that stuff. So I believe over 500 years it has established a spiritual force that in order to shift it, it needs to be retracted and rewritten, saying that it was incorrect and that it no longer stands. Not just an apology. It needs to, the same ink that went and said it and established in the physical, the spiritual, the whatever realm, there are spiritual realms that do have an energetic realms, it needs to be changed. So that's one. The other thing is that I put in the chat that the Vatican is, I think, the third largest holder of land on the planet. So in terms of reparations, they can let some of that land go. And that could be a part of the repertory, because they own every hospital that's Catholic, every school, anyway, they're the third largest. And then the other thing is that in my mind, that there will be no real change globally until all the religions, not just the Catholic, all the religions, the Christians, must give up, must rewrite some doctrines, because the folks who wrote the doctrines were some of the same people who also were oppressing people. So to say they were holy people and brought in by God to write the truth can't be true. So my belief as of January of this year, because I didn't always believe it, but I came to realize that they need to rewrite the doctrine. They need to take out any religion that has a blood requirement, blood sacrifice. I don't care if it's man, animal, or Jesus. And Jesus went to the devil and got the keys and all that. The doctrine is going to have to be rewritten. They built, and it's also patriarchal. So they need to rewrite some of the things that allowed them to write in the first place, because the Pope's job is to uphold the doctrine. And if he wrote it under the doctrine, then the doctrine somewhere, even if you don't agree with the parts that I quoted, needs to be revisited. I did ask ChatGPT about some of my thoughts about the blood, and it said many theologians had questioned, because some of it didn't make sense. Theologians questioned it, but they didn't tell us they questioned it. So they need to go revisit it. The ones that they said are purely holy, hand only wrote what God wanted them to write kind of stuff needs to be revisited. So those are my things, and I will, and they also need to do an apology for all crimes against Africa, against indigenous people, against children. In 2019, the last Pope acknowledged that they had whole convents that were sex slaves. They need to go out and uncover all the stuff and give an apology. So with that, I'll mute. And sorry I couldn't get on. I just, been running around. So thanks.
No, thank you for being here. And it's important that we have community voices. The next hand I saw was a community voice from, I think it's Mr. Julius. Did you want to come on and ask your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for being here with us. Please let us know your question.
Okay. I greet everybody. It's a pleasure for me to see Prophet Anyahu Cox and all the people, the panelists. I still asking whether the papal bull is still actual. Thank you.
And it looks like as we look at the chat, it looks like we have an answer to your question inside the chat from Brother Cam Howard with Reparations United. And so
if I can speak to that quickly.
Perfect.
Sure. So the papal bulls, until they're rescinded, they still hold weight of the authority of God's visor on earth, which is the Pope, who they claim he is the God's representative on earth. Until they're rescinded, they still have weight. In 1999, no, it was in early 2000s, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was the Supreme Court Justice in the United States, used one of the papal bulls in a ruling against returning the land of indigenous people to the indigenous nation who had filed a federal lawsuit against the United States. So in the most quote unquote powerful European nation on the planet, they still use these papal bulls in defense of their thievery.
Thank you for that, Brother Cam. I hope you've heard your answer. I see another hand from community intervention. Our sister CJ Dunford. CJ, did you want to come on and ask your question?
Yes, actually, I wanted to share what Brother Divine had shared with me earlier. You had mentioned or asked what are the actions that we are looking to implement. And both he and Reverend Willis Pope were on earlier and had to go. But Brother Divine Karama is the founder and leader of the One Lexington initiative here in Lexington, Kentucky, that manages many areas of public safety. It started with the gun violence that we were impacted by amongst our young people, mostly in the African American community. And with his success over the last 3 years of that program, the mayor has expanded some of the areas in the city with our the intervention for education, intervention for food security, and other areas. And so he, along with Reverend Willis Polk of the Imani Baptist Church, were key supporters of my attendance to the symposium. And he shared with me his support in terms of what we plan to do, basically, in terms of implementing action. So I'm just gonna summarize this because there's a lot here, but basically he has agreed that One Lexington will support a domino effect strategy, putting public safety in a reevaluation under the reparatory justice lens here in Lexington, Kentucky, in a meeting with the mayor. And the intent is to invite the spiritual community here in Lexington, along with youth, our food sovereignty institutions and boards, to not only start a local initiative with a faith-rooted dialogue, but expanding that through cultural activism and youth-led systems changes. So One Lexington has been impactful in also supporting some of our women's organizations here. Global African Sheroes Union is one of the organizations here in Kentucky that I'm also a part of, and they assisted in making sure that our women were equipped with knowledge around domestic violence, self-defense, and those different aspects. And so he has a very, I will say, an active track record in implementing action swiftly. And so we appreciate him. He tuned in earlier. He's actually hosting a community event tonight at the Lyric Theater. So he did have to go, but I did want to share that here in Kentucky, we are working together to implement a campaign and also some actions of educating our community and utilizing a trickle-down effect with our Catholic community and religious community and institutions here in Kentucky.
Thank you for that, sis. It's so important that we are action oriented and that we ensure that our conversations are guided by best practices and that we are always willing to come back to the drawing board when things aren't effective. I think sometimes we get so committed to standing on keeping our word, but sometimes when we say things, we need to come back and say, I misspoke or I learned something different. When we originally, as the Teaching Artists Institute, went to the Roman Catholic Church and we asked for this Vatican Symposium, our goal was to talk about cultural restitution. First and foremost, to echo the prophetess, cultural restitution, which is rooted in the land and returning land holdings in the interior of the continent, especially where as an organization that facilitates cross-cultural communication and cultural immersion, especially for the diaspora, we find when we're off the beaten path, when there's one institution that's standing in the interior of the continent, in a place where the tourism sector doesn't generally go, it's usually the Roman Catholic Church. Now, that doesn't mean that we're excusing the Episcopal Church and the Evangelical Church. We're talking about all the faith. This is an interfaith dialogue. It's usually faith institutions that own the land and that have the most well-maintained building in the interior with the most access in the regions of the continent where we work as an organization. And so when we first went there, our goal was to figure out how we can get that land back to us, because our land is the foundation of our spirituality as global African people. And as one of the largest landholders globally, we feel that this is the first form of reparatory justice, the return of that. We have institutions that have already started that work. The nuns and nones is a great example of, returning the land back to the people for their benefit. And that is what I thought the mission was. But when I went to the Vatican, I realized that I didn't misspeak, but my thoughts were incomplete because I'm guided by spirit, and the work of the Teaching Artists Institute is as well. And I realized that there are many of us that are around the world that are Catholics, that are working within the church, and that it looks like us. Prophet, yes, not prophetess. Thank you for the correction, Minister. She is a prophet. Thank you for that. And so because I realized that I didn't see the full picture, a part of our job as an organization is to make sure that we are engaging the artists, the artivists, the culture workers, the healers, to tell the full story and to communicate that even within the institution. To raise up the Coptic Church and the origins of Christianity as they're not captured inside of the Vatican Museum, and to tell our stories for ourselves. And that needs to be a major part of the work. And so I'm here on this community report back to say that I didn't fully share the vision because I didn't fully know the vision. And I'm okay with saying that I didn't know all the answers back in January, and that I don't know all the answers now. And that as an institution, we come to the global community in service. We bring in experts, we create platforms, and we need your support. This doesn't work unless we work. Unless you are along for this journey, it is incomplete. And so I want to thank you all for being here today on this Juneteenth commemoration, to know that it is only a commemoration. We're only celebrating and holding up the legacy of our ancestors if we are with intention continuing their work with practice and product and outcomes. And so you being here is an active product. We will share opportunities for you to continue to engage. And I thank you again for all your questions and concerns. Before we go, there was one last question. And this question was posed in the middle of our presentation by our dear sister, Anna Miro, our Dada out of Tanzania that's currently living in Italy. And she said, I don't want to talk about the community report back. I want to ask questions. How are we going to achieve reparatory justice if our African leaders in real time are corrupt, they're sick, they're a part of the malady and the sickness? And I want you to know, Sister Anna, and all of our global African family and allies, that we too are a part of the problem. And the first reparation, the first repair starts with ourselves. We are a part of the repairing that needs to happen. We have deep-seated malady in us historically, and only we can correct that. But this is a part of that healing, bringing a light to the illicit flow of resources out of the continent, bringing light to the grandfathered in leadership that needs to go. This is why we look to the Sahel and we look to Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, the land of the upright. This is why we look to Bobby Wine when we think about Museveni and Uganda and the legacy of those like yourself. Don't exclude yourself from the solution. You are a part of the solution, and all of you are a part of the solution. This is a part of the reparatory healing and justice that we seek. And I want to thank you this Juneteenth 2025 for being a part of that. Amen, Ashe, and we look forward to sharing the video with all of you. Have a good day, family. Find a festival to participate in, because Juneteenth was the largest family reunion that ever happened on this soil, and the family reunion celebration continues. Aluta continua.